Do you love the music of Walt Disney World? Are you the type of Disney fan who creates playlists organized with your favorite Disney parks background music? Then this podcast episode, fellow Disney park music enthusiast, is the perfect one for you. Welcome aboard Imagination Skyway, your guided tour through the worlds of Disney and Imagineering. I'm your host, Matthew Krull, and it's my job to explore the stories and places we love and the people who bring them to life. Today's episode is all about the music of Walt Disney World, from the sounds of your favorite attraction cues to the background music setting the tone in your favorite Disney park. In this conversation, we discuss our personal favorite area music loops across the parks, resorts, and beyond, an update to a similar episode we released in the spring of 2019 with a new guest. As you fasten your seatbelt, I encourage you to take out your mobile devices and search for Imagination Skyway on your favorite social media app. Better yet, if you're looking for ad-free episodes, bonus content, or the ability to comment directly on the podcast, head to patreon.com/imaginationskyway, where you can sign up for a free account or a premium subscription. And if this episode leaves you yearning for a trip to Disney or any other destination, reach out to our partners and sponsors at KMV Travel by visiting kmvtravel.com/skyway. As we begin our journey, please remain seated, keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times, and enjoy your journey aboard Imagination Skyway. One of the most popular episodes of the show we recorded way back in early 2019, and I don't like to repeat episodes. I've never repeated a topic before, but this is one that when I thought about it, I realized, first of all, we didn't cover everything, and second of all, there's been a lot of development at the parks since 2019, and that topic is the very big fan favorite. I think it's a big conversation among Disney fans just generally. Favorite area music loops we'll talk specifically at Walt Disney World for this one. I tried to keep my lists to mostly area music loops that were debuted in 2019 or later, or updates to older versions of area loops. So a lot of my list is going to be brand new because I tried very hard not to repeat anything I said before over 6 years ago. And to do this, last time we had my cousin Mike on the show, who's in the music industry, and a friend of mine, Anthony, who is a music teacher. Following on with that theme, I wanted to bring a guest onto the show who I've known about for a long time. I've been following Resort TV 1 for years, always love the content that you put out, and that guest is Josh from Resort TV 1. So Josh, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to actually get to connect with you at Destination D23, because before that, I've seen you around the parks doing live streams, and I never wanted to interrupt. There was actually one time that I walked into the background and I realized it was you, and I waved, and I went and I screenshotted myself later to say, I appeared on Resort TV 1. I was actually there.
That's amazing. But yeah, like I always tell everybody, if you ever see us in the parks, definitely stop us and say hi. It's always fun to meet people, and just always fun to see where people are watching from, and just meet new friends. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, if anyone hasn't heard of your show before, we'll definitely talk a bit about it at the end of the show here. But let's dive into rapid fire questions. It's how I love to start these conversations, and I always ask questions that I also have never really answered before, so I'll throw in my answers to the ring as well. And I'll say that one of these actually doesn't have much to do with Disney, but I'm going to go with 3 questions here, all relating to this topic. First, which Disney movie has your favorite soundtrack?
Oh boy, that is a tough one. I think overall, just for the classic nature, the first one that pops into my head is probably Peter Pan, just because I love that old school, there's the vocal kind of choral arrangements with all that thick harmony, and also just the orchestral soundtrack. And it's just so classic. Even when I go in the Peter Pan queue at Magic Kingdom, I hear that music and it just takes me back. So probably just for the classic nature, Peter Pan.
That's an excellent answer. I feel very underprepared for my answer now. I have The Lion King. It's a very cliche answer, but you're connecting two of my favorite artists, composers. You have Hans Zimmer, probably one of my favorite composers. It's always a toss-up between him and John Williams. He's got the classic sound of John Williams, but I just gravitate towards Hans Zimmer's music. And then Elton John and Tim Rice. pairing up for incredible, some of the most iconic Disney songs of all time, major part of the Disney Renaissance. So whether listening to the Pride Lands on the score, or listening to Circle of Life, it's just a great soundtrack from beginning to end, and especially the Legacy Collection. I love hearing the Legacy Collection from that movie. So that's a great first start for us. Number 2, what's your favorite song from the Disney parks?
Oh, favorite.
So I know we're talking about area music today,
right,
but I figured we'll shift to just thinking of a particular song, whether it's a soundtrack from an attraction or another theme song you might hear somewhere in the parks.
If I had to pick song, I'm going to define song as something that has lyrics with it. And so I think, by the way, I'm a music teacher, so so that's my other.
We should have talked about that. Yeah.
So I'll probably define song as something with words, and like we'll talk about the area music later, like you said. I would probably have to go with One Little Spark. And we can debate about whether or not the current version of the Figment Imagination ride is good or not, but the song is still good, and I love One Little Spark. I just think it's so classic.
That is an excellent answer. And it's one that I think is a rarity where it bridges it's not a classic song from the original Disneyland or even from the opening of Walt Disney World, but it does tend to bridge generations of Disney fans together. And that's what I think of when I think of a favorite Disney song as well. And I think for me, in the mood, it always depends on the mood I'm in, but right now I'm actually going to say Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. I'm just feeling like we need optimistic spirit, and it's always delivering an optimistic spirit, something to look forward to. Sherman Brothers classic, developed for the 1964 World's Fair. We lost it when it came to Walt Disney World, and we lost the sponsorship. But to say we, like I'm part of Disney, Disney lost the sponsorship with General Electric, and then brought it back with the 1993 refurbishment. I'm curious if they're going to. I know they're not going to touch the song. They're very clearly with the new Carousel of Progress or the update Carousel of Progress going to keep Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. I don't really bet, but if I did, I'd bet that it's going to stay. But I'm curious if they're going to give it any extra flair and modernization, or just a rearrangement of the classic song. We'll have to see.
And watching the D23 presentation, like you did, I think my gut feeling is that they will probably keep all the score very similar. Obviously, they'll have to write new score for the Walt Disney scene in the beginning, which will be incredible. I'm sure it'll be in the same style. They do a pretty good job matching styles. But I would say probably the scenes will be updated some, especially that last scene, because, a lot of the stuff, they did update it, but I think it'll probably be bigger updates, maybe not to the story. So we're going to kind of see how all that goes. I don't know. I think there would be a lot of angry fans if, they change things too much. If they change the names of the characters, there's not John and, that kind of thing. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think they'll probably keep to the same spirit. And then, as you said, just make some updates. Certainly to that last scene. I think all Disney fans are going to want to see that one updated. Certainly no longer a vision of the future. It's a relic from the 90s at this point.
Laser discs. Who still has a laser disc player?
Car phones. Last one, and this is, I think, maybe the hardest or maybe the easiest. I don't know. It depends. But I'm curious, outside of Disney, what genre of music or what artist do you find that you're frequenting the most? What do you play the most outside of Disney music? I'll be honest, in my car, especially with the girls and even without the girls, Disney music is probably the number one thing I'm playing. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, what's a genre or an artist that you queue up a lot?
So we actually, Liam and I listen to a Christian radio station in the car every morning. So we like a lot of artists on that. But I think, outside of just picking an artist, a lot of times I'll go with an 80s or 90s playlist. I think if I had to pick one specific favorite artist, it would probably be Journey.
That's a great answer. I love that. Yeah, for me, I have to be honest, my music taste is very wide because it really, I think like most people, it depends on my mood. But I find that, strangely enough, I actually listen to classical more than anything else outside of Disney music. And it's just, especially because I'm not the type of person who can work while listening to lyrical music. It has to be instrumental.
Yeah.
So classical always puts me in a focused mood. And if it's in the morning, it helps to start my day on a bright note. If it's in the evening, it helps to get me relaxed for the end of the day. And obviously, depending on which even style of classical music you're listening to, you can have that upbeat morning start, or you can have that relaxing, getting ready to calm down, getting ready for sleep mode. So maybe a boring answer for a lot of people, but I'm a big fan of classical music, so that's one I cue up a lot.
So I have to ask then, as a music teacher, can you give us a favorite composer or a favorite song that you like go to over and over again? I'd love to know, especially as a fellow classical music fan.
Yeah, I'm big on French composers, so Satie and Debussy are frequenting my playlist. Clair de la Lune, I think, especially because of its Disney connection, is one that I play a lot. And then I can never pronounce it, but Gymnopédies, I forgot how to pronounce it from. I think it's from Satie.
Gymnopédie?
Gymnopédie, yeah.
Yeah.
Do not speak French.
So
that I read it. I'm like, oh yeah, it's this one.
I love that song.
So that one I love a lot too. And that one is from Impressions de France, or is one of them that's featured in Impressions de France.
Yes.
So I'm a big fan of French classical.
Good. And well, you got Satie right. A lot of people say Satie because they don't know how to. So there you go.
That one, at least I know how to pronounce, but everything else, was harder to pronounce. Anyway, before we jump into area music loops, because you said you're a music teacher, why don't you talk a bit about your music background? Because that was part of my reason. I wanted to bring you onto the show, but then I also wanted to pick one that was appropriate, I think, to your expertise, even outside of Disney. So why don't you talk a bit about your music background?
So, yeah, from a very early age, when I was 5 years old, my parents would always say, like, I would stand in front of the radio and just like dance, randomly. So they knew I liked music, but first went to Epcot and, Disney, Magic Kingdom as well. But Epcot was what I really remembered the most, even though I love magic. And walking to Epcot, hearing that, original area music, everything was just so awe-inspiring. Not just the music, but it all went together so well. And so I'll tell people, that hearing that music at Disney really inspired me to be a music teacher. Like, I got to the point where I loved that class. It was, it's like it is very classical style, that early Epcot music. It's got a lot of classical style to it. If not, maybe some Broadway and things in there as well with some of the songs and, veggie, veggie, fruit, fruit, and all that slapstick stuff. But so fast forward, I went through high school band, had some great band directors and things that inspired me, and then eventually ended up in college and music majoring, and now I've been teaching for 23 years. And, it's been pretty amazing. It's been an amazing ride. I've had marching bands in the top 10 in the state of Florida, which is that I would say that's a young man's game. Like, you have to like devote your whole life to that. Yeah. Which was cool for 6 years. And then I decided to move on after that. But yeah, so basically now I teach just music and music theory and composition and stuff like that. And I really just enjoy kind of igniting students' passion. I have a student who just graduated last year who is one of the best composers I've ever worked with, and he wants to do video game music, and he will. I know he will, right? So like, that's super cool to see a kid. I'm like, I'm going to see you in the credits of a video game someday.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I think I played music all throughout high school. Unfortunately, I think one of my regrets was dropping music when I moved into college, because I was in wind ensemble, I was in jazz bands, I was in pit orchestra, I was really active in music outside. That was like my number one extracurricular activity. And then I went to school for business, and I had to shift gears to other extracurriculars to beef up my resume. And music could have been one of those things. It just is one I didn't stick with. But I always loved being in a band or being in an orchestra. That connection to the rest of it really is a team sport. And I love that it works both sides of your brains. It works both sides of your brain. Sorry, the creative side, the mathematical side, and it's relaxing. So it's a great practice, and I wish I would have kept with it. I played trumpet. It's hard to pick up the trumpet again after not playing it for 20 years. But
that's awesome.
I think it's still in my dad's basement somewhere. So I can pick it up. But
nice.
Anyway, it's great to learn a little bit more about your background, because I think it helps to at least frame this discussion and give people an understanding of. I like to showcase why I think some of my guests are good picks for certain topics, and certainly you were top of the list for this one. And for this, we'll go back and forth talking about some of our favorite music loops across Walt Disney World. As I mentioned when we first introduced this topic, this could cover resorts, it could cover parks, specific parts, parks, lands, attractions, queues, exits, lands, entrances, like it can resort area music loops in general. Just there are so many of them. It's one of my favorite things to talk about within Disney, and I always let my guests go first. And you could go in any order you want. Doesn't have to be from like 10 to 1 or 1 to 10. But what is one area music loop you want to bring up first?
I think, I already kind of brought it up, so I'm going to go ahead and bring it all the way up. It is my very favorite area music loop of all time. It's one of my very favorite pieces of music of all time. And that is the Epcot original 1982 entrance music loop. I think it's a work of art. I really do. And when I listen to it more and more, I hear all the different styles. There's, you mentioned impressionistic composers, Satie, Debussy, and all those guys. Even Ravel is one of my favorite as well. There's impressionism in there in the imagination section. Well, that fits pretty well, right? Impressionism and imagination.
Yeah.
And it was George Wilkins that composed that. And he was incredible. And so, I wish I'd gotten to meet him. He was at the Retro Magic Convention a couple years ago, and I did not get to go that time. But just what a cool thing. One of my favorite parts about it is that it becomes an overture for the whole park. And if you think back to that time period, all those attractions were there. And so you're walking through the entrance, you're like, that music's cool, but you don't think much about it if it's your first time. And then all of a sudden, when you go into imagination, you've already heard One Little Spark. And when you go into Universe of Energy, you've already heard Energy, You Make the World Go Round, and so on, and Fun to Be Free, and all the things, Golden Dream. And so, it becomes this overture to the park, just like an overture to the musical. It's kind of like, Sound of Music, and you hear all the different songs from Sound of Music in the overture. It's such a unique thing. And so the fact that they did that in the theme park, to me, is just another level of artistic expression. And they actually even still do it. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't know this, but I'm a music dork, obviously. Pinar Toprak wrote the current loop, and she has this little 4-note theme in there. I'm not going to try and sing and mess up the audience's ears, but it's a 4-note theme that was used in Harmonious, and also used in Luminous, and also used in the Epcot Beacon of Magic show. So even though the loop now is a little repetitive, there is still that element of like using themes in the same places. So anyway, yeah, 82 entrance loop for me.
Yeah, it's a classic that I loved listening to, and it's true that they designed the parks to have the entrance, and going back to Walt's time, to be that overture to the film. It was designed like a film to take you into a film. So naturally, aside from smelling the popcorn in the front of the theater, you're also going to hear, as the film starts, to your point, that overture to the park experience you're going to have, which is going to be like walking through a film. Interesting you brought up, as I'd mentioned in my preamble, that I was going to focus on newer music because I didn't want to repeat, couldn't remember, and didn't take the time to go back and listen to all my answers from the first episode that I recorded 6.5 years ago. Crazy
Nice.
to think it was that long ago. But one of my answers was the current World Celebration theme. Because, yeah, I love Pinar Toprak's theme, and I picked up on that, and it's one that I don't know. It's one of those things where it's similar to when you're going through, I like to say, like if you're going through Tomorrowland and you're suddenly wondering why you're singing Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, you might not realize that you just heard it,
Yeah.
a sort of a synthesized version, a different version of Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, a few other ones that play in there, but you might not realize or might not think about it, but you're hearing this theme of Epcot played throughout World Celebration. You're hearing it, like you said, in Harmonious, in Luminous. It's for those who are curious, and I'm also not going to sing it, but I did write it down if you go look up there's an album for Luminous that you can listen to on Spotify or Apple Music, and the song is called Luminous Family. That's where you hear the theme in particular really pick up in those 4 notes that you're talking about. But it's always hard to adapt to something new, especially when we are so connected to something that is nostalgic for us, that brings back emotions of our trips to Disney when we were younger, it doesn't have to be as kids, it could be, younger versions of our adult selves. And so it's hard to adapt to something that's new. And I know there was a lot of controversy around not only changing Interventions and Epcot's, central future world to the updated World Celebration. And part of that was changing the theme, which I definitely talked about. I can't attest to this, but I'm pretty sure I talked about Papillon from David Arkenstone and the Russell Brower theme that he extended into the Interventions area music loop that is so iconic for so many fans of Disney, and especially I think a lot of Disney fans are Epcot fans. But it didn't take me very long to grow nostalgic for the current version of Epcot's theme. And I think that I feel like every time I step into Epcot and I hear that theme, it makes me feel optimistic. It puts this modern spin on Epcot and what it was always, maybe it's evolved from what it originally was, but it still feels like Epcot to me. It just feels like a modern, redefined version of it. And I say to a lot of people that this is basically going to be Gen Alpha's nostalgia, is going to be this theme to Epcot. They're going to be nostalgic for sitting on those benches charging their phones, World Celebration, or grabbing a coffee from Connections Cafe, or riding, stepping onto Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Like, that's going to be their nostalgia, is when they were tall enough to ride that, or they heard this music for the first time. And that's going to keep it relevant and fresh for new generations, is something I still appreciate. I didn't realize that Pinar, I was trying to figure out what else she had done. And I had forgotten that she composed the music for Captain Marvel. And what was amazing about that is that made her the first female composer to score a billion-dollar film.
Wow.
And she also composed the music for wrote the theme for NFL Thursday Night Football. I also did not realize that.
That's pretty cool.
So she's got an interesting, she definitely has a strong discography and resume to go along with the Epcot music that she's written and the Luminous theme that she developed too. So I'm a fan. But that is what I'll say. That is one of my answers, because that is sort of an extension of yours. Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as you said Epcot, I'm like, yep. We're going to go with the modern version of the Epcot music loop. I feel like there's going to be a lot of Epcot tonight.
Yeah.
There is on my list. What do you want to talk about next?
Well, so yeah, I think just to respond to what you said, I agree with all of that, and I think that the fact that they were able to carry it through 2 fireworks shows is pretty cool, because that, Harmonious and Luminous are different in a lot of ways, but just having that there is pretty cool. And one of the things I said on a live stream several times. And I don't have any delusions of grandeur that Disney actually listens to anything that I say, but I think it was cool that I at least called it, was that watching the Beacon of Magic Epcot show, and that's, objectively one of the coolest things they've done in years, putting all the lights, the LEDs on Spaceship Earth. Something that even actually the designer of Spaceship Earth, the lead Imagineer, John DeCure Jr., who I've gotten to meet a couple times, and I'm friends with his son, which is so cool.
That's awesome.
But he approved. He designed Spaceship Earth and said, "This is super cool. If we'd had these, I totally would have put those on there." Basically,
that's amazing.
I'm not direct quoting him, but he liked it. Was the thing? And so, with that being said, I was listening to that Beacon of Magic show, and he and that theme Pinar Toprak wrote, the shorter version of it. This is beautiful. It gets me in the feels every time. And I said, we need a whole area music loop of this. And then I walked in one day, whichever day it was, I think Luminous's first day when they turned it on. And I walked in, I was like, is that a new? Because they had that kind of needle drop loop for a while that was fine, but it wasn't really Disney music. It was just random, inspirational sounding songs. And I was like, that's a new loop. Is that's the theme? And I was like, they did what I asked. It's just, anyway, so.
I think they listen. Either that or you really predicted it very well. But I do think that they listen.
So my next one on the list is actually the Interventions Plaza area music. I know you mentioned already Papillon and Russell Brower. And so this past weekend, I went to a Retro WDW Retro Magic convention in Orlando and here at Disney, and it's I got to meet Russell Brower, and so
that's incredible.
He's an incredible person. You guys can't see it, but I was showing you a picture. So there, I mean, literally. One of the nicest men I've ever met. I told him I'm a music teacher, and we talked for a good 5 or 7 minutes, longer than I would have, really expected. But he was very, very gracious, and I just told him how much my, childhood, how much that loop meant to me, and everything. It was cool to hear his story about composing it. He only had 2 weeks to compose that theme. The coolest story he told, and we have a video out on it if you want to see him say it for himself. But the coolest story that he told about that loop was that apparently Marty Sklar and one of the project managers for the Epcot update, when they updated Communicore to Interventions, Marty Sklar was walking with the project manager just a couple weeks before it opened. And all of a sudden, you could hear the original Epcot loop in the background as they were walking by, the fountain or whatever area they were in. And, Marty kind of heard the loop and he's like, oh, yeah, that's the old loop. And he looked at the project manager, nothing wrong with it, but he looked at the project manager and said, so you're going to have like new music in this area, right? And the project manager kind of looked scared for a second and said, yeah, you bet, Marty, you bet. So then they call up Russell and was like, hey, you got 2 weeks. Do whatever you can. So he really listened to the George Wilkins, loop and really got inspiration. He said, I was terrified because it was one of my favorite pieces of music as well. But he did the same overture theme. There are themes from other, there's Listen to the Land is in there. Golden Dream is in there. There's several aspects of different attractions. He was trying to do something similar to what George had done in the original loop. So, and then just hearing Papillon and hearing even his, Future World theme that he wrote there, it's so iconic to Epcot and that fountain, and you can almost see the little fiber optics in the ground when you hear that loop, I think.
Yeah, you can. It's certainly a love letter to 80s and 90s Disney fans, even early 2000s. It's one that it definitely brings me back to that time. This was years ago, but you mentioned the two names, so I have to bring it up, especially for any new listeners. I had the awesome chance to interview both Russell Brower and George Wilkins back in 2020. So I was just looking it up on my, I keep a running list of all my episodes. So Russell Brower was technically episode 80. That was July 11th, 2020. And then September 19th, 2020, episode 86, I interviewed George Wilkins. I did a lot of interviews back in 2020 because honestly, obviously the world was kind of under a lockdown. And so I got a lot of these people at home with nothing else to do. And I'm like, hey, Russell Brower, you want to talk? Hey, George Wilkins, you want to talk? Hey, Bob Gurr, do you want to talk? So
that's awesome. I'm going to have to go watch that.
And they all agreed. So it was really cool to get to talk to him about both of them, about all the music that they had worked on. Interventions is certainly a great answer. I have more Epcot, but I'm going to take us outside of Epcot just to break things up. And I'm going to give an answer that my fans already and listeners already know and are probably tired of hearing me talk about. But I don't know if I brought it up in the last Music Loop episode. So I'm going to bring it up now because it was still relatively new. And I don't know even how much I was aware of this area loop back then. Chances are I did bring it up. But when you head to Animal Kingdom, which is park that's filled with great music from all over the world, there's one area that is not world music, that's totally fictional, and that's of course Avatar, Pandora, the world of Avatar. And you don't hear a lot of music when you are in Pandora. You're going to hear more sounds of Pandora. You're going to hear the insects, creatures, and the brush. Of course, you have a couple of themes that are played in the attractions. You don't really have an official cue music loop for Navi River Journey. You don't really have an official cue music loop for Flight of Passage. Again, you're just hearing sounds to get you into Pandora. But one that does have a music loop is Satuli Canteen. And Satuli Canteen is by far one of my favorite music loops on property. And it is written by... This is where the line blurs for me a little bit, because I know James Horner passed away. But that was... around the time that Pandora, the World of Avatar was being developed. So I do think he has some contribution directly on the album, but I don't know how much, because both credits were given to Simon Franklin, who also wrote the music for Avatar Way of Water, and James Horner. So we're going to say it's both of them. I haven't had the chance to interview Simon Franklin, but that would be a good one. So I could actually, because I'm curious, what did you write? What did James write? But anyway, both of them in collaboration in some way developed the music for Satuli Canteen. They do carry forward the themes of Avatar. They also feature what feels like an extension of the first Avatar soundtrack. You get the same type of instruments and vocals. You get the same style of music, and obviously, with having the Avatar composers develop the music for it, gives it that authentic and consistent feel with the Avatar films. And Disney fans will often remind me that you can listen to Ragatar and Shaman of the Souls from the Pandora album, again, that you can listen to on Apple Music or Spotify or purchase. But that only is 2 songs from what is essentially an hour-long music loop, and I want Disney to release it because I love the music, and I will go and sit there just for the music sometimes. It is, otherworldly, but it is still very grounded and feels like something you could. It just puts me in a place of ease. It's just one of my favorite music loops. So, very geeky answer. It's literally an area music loop in a quick service location in a park, but it definitely one of my favorites. So, one that I had to shout out here. I think this may be the last one that my fans or listeners will not be surprised by. Will not be surprised by. The others might be surprises. We'll see.
That's a great one. To me, that's a deep cut because I actually know the music from that, but I'd have to go back and listen to it to hear it. And now I want to. I think that's incredible. It is such a cool place. I think it needs a good loop because it is a quick service, but it's also pretty grandiose in scope and scale. So I think it's a neat place.
The music is kind of introspective because you go there, especially after riding Flight of Passage or Navi River Journey, and you feel like you're carrying that theme or that story of the land in with you. So as you're reflecting on the experiences, whether you walk through the land or you experience the attractions, it is a very introspective type of playlist, which are generally playlists I gravitate to.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Like I said, I want to go listen to it now. So that's awesome. I think it's cool. Disney has done a really good job of releasing as much stuff as they probably can. I don't know, but I was really surprised that they just very quickly released, Luminous on Spotify and Apple Music and all that. So that to me is super cool. So for my next one, I think I'm going to go to Magic Kingdom. And I have kind of 2 that are similar, so I'm wondering if I should just say both of them because they're really similar. So maybe I'll
go for
it. I'll go ahead and do that
because
they kind of go together. So I don't want to come back to one and then the other. But the Tomorrowland area music 2003 through current is amazing, and then the Tomorrowland area music from 1989 to 2002, which was the previous one, and that one is like a needle drop playlist with songs like Bubble Shuffle and like Behind the Waterfall. I think maybe on there.
I love Behind the Waterfall.
Yeah, which is also in Wonders of Life. So anyway, but that one, I think the needle drop is cool. That was kind of the soundtrack of my childhood Tomorrowland. And I think those years are right because I have the files on my computer labeled that way. And I think I found that information at some point, but who knows? But the 2003 through current one, it's only been updated one time, and they added the monorail song in there because they had it on the Disneyland version. So the monorail,
I didn't even realize they went through that update.
Yeah, it happened not long ago. I say not long ago. It happened within the last 5 or 10 years, probably 10 years.
Compared to 2003.
Yeah.
Recent compared to 2003.
Yeah, it's more recent than that. But so it's just such a great loop. And it is one of those things, like you mentioned earlier with Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, that you can just be humming the song and not even realize it. There's also, I believe, Miracles from Molecules from Disneyland is in there. And then what was the other one? Strange Things Are Happening from Buzz Lightyear, from Toy Story.
And they have Now Is the Best Time for those who do like that other version of Carousel of Progress's theme.
Yes, and I love the fact that the new People Mover narration says, now is the time, now is the best time.
Yeah.
If you get really lucky, the area music's hitting the same melody at the same time they're saying it, and that is super cool. I'm a dork, and I love it when that happens. But
that's perfect.
I love all the themes in there, and it's so cool because of the electronic nature of it, the way all the themes are woven together. It's like it fades in and out of one theme and another very quickly. The other one that I love in there is they've got the XS Tech theme in there from Alien Encounter, so that's pretty cool. So I'd say definitely the Tomorrowland area music. I would say if I had to pick a favorite, it'd be the current one, but I do put on the old one sometimes too, even though it was, when we say needle drop, just in case anybody's wondering, that means that it is composed of a pre-existing playlist of music. So a playlist of pre-existing music. So you just find a bunch of tracks, and I mean, it's kind of like making a mixtape or a mix CD, basically.
Yeah, it's Disney's playlist. They just pick some songs, they put them together, and they put them in a land or a queue. Yeah. I was actually first introduced, I had never heard that term before, but it was in the interview with Russell Brower that I learned what needle drop is, and I use it whenever music comes up now.
And whenever he said that, when I was talking to him, I was like,
Yeah.
I know you're a Disney music fan. And he said that. He was a Disney World, a Disney Parks music fan before he started composing it.
Yeah, that's always great.
So awesome.
Yeah. I feel like I'm just piggybacking off of some of yours because I will stick with not only Magic Kingdom, but Tomorrowland, and go again to something that is new. And to be clear, like I've said, I'm a huge fan of the classic loops. Just the fact that I even knew what Behind the Waterfall was, I think speaks to that. But I'm trying to keep my playlists focused on new stuff because I haven't spoken about much of this before and don't want to talk to him. And you, by the way, Josh, you're giving answers I have never spoken about before, so these are great. Except for maybe Interventions. That one comes up a lot.
Yeah.
But Tron Light Cycle Run has a great cue loop. It's about 30 minutes long, so it's not a terribly long loop, but it definitely builds on the theme for the attraction. These are also songs that you can look up and listen to on, pick your platform. But there are the two songs on Apple Music and Spotify are called MK Gateway and MK Grid. MK Grid is the ride soundtrack, which is about 2.5 minutes long. And then MK Gateway is a 4.5 minute cut of the full 30-minute loop. It is obviously very, electronic, lots of synth sounds, lots of ambient textures. What I like about it is it's obviously a modern loop, but it feels like a classic Tron soundtrack. And that's because Joe Trappanese, who wrote the music, got inspiration from the original Daft Punk soundtrack, and his original pitch, which he stuck with for MK Gateway for the cue loop, was the ultimate athletic competition. And when you listen to it, you feel like you're entering into this arena that might be on the grid, where you are about to witness, or in this case, take part in some sort of competition or athletic competition. And because of that, it's one of those rare cue loops where it is both, again, I'm going to use the word introspective, but both introspective and calming, where you could be listening to it as, for me, it's great focus music if I'm working. But it also has this tension in it where you know that there is something exciting about to happen. And so you're sort of living in this mode of musical mode where you're still in a state of calm, but feel the tension of something that is coming. You feel the suspense building, and you feel it as you're walking into the queue. And then certainly the cue music changes slightly and becomes even more tense, more suspenseful once you pass that pre-show and pass by the launch area for the attraction and then into the queue area, that extension of the outdoor soundtrack. And I do like when Disney does that. They've done this in a couple of places. Test Track was another place. The last version, I'm not as familiar with the new music, but they had an exterior loop that then transitioned into an interior loop that sort of changed as you were getting closer to the ride. But yeah, sticking with Tomorrowland. Tomorrowland's got some great music. I think I talked about Space Mountain last time, but this time, because Tron Light Cycle Run wasn't open back then, I had to give a shout out to the Q Loop for Tron.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great one. I think is it Daft Punk that did that one? I think somebody says, or I can't remember who it was.
It was Joe Trappanese.
Oh, Joe Trappanese.
So he wrote the music to, I think it was Tron Legacy.
Okay, so that's what it was. And actually now, I don't know, at this point on October 1st and until hopefully through the movie's run, they're actually playing the part of the Tron Ares soundtrack on the ride itself now. I haven't seen it yet. I need to go see it, but you can hear it. I've walked over there, and of course the line was too long, but you could hear the music was definitely different on the ride vehicle. So that's super cool.
It looks amazing. You got the red color. You have the 9 Inch Nails, they said, was the soundtrack.
Yes.
Because they wrote the music for Tron Ares.
Yeah.
So it's got a very different feeling to it. It feels darker than the Daft Punk version.
There's more of a beat to it. It's got it was you could really hear the bass kind of thumping as they went by. So that was pretty cool. I liked that. But so that's a great choice. I love the Tron area and the whole music area. So I'm going to go back to Epcot. I have a lot of Epcot on here, but that's just my jam.
Epcot's great. Yeah.
So I'm picking this one as my next one. because it still plays there. And it's a classic area music loop. And it's there are a few, they're not many, but there are a few opening day area music loops that still play at Epcot. And
I'm
one
running
of them,
through them in my head, trying to figure out which one you're going to say.
and one of them went away for a little while and then came back. And I got really excited when it came back. And that is the Land Pavilion exterior area music loop.
I had a feeling you were going to say that one. Yep.
Such a great loop. And it was gone for a while, and they had the Pinar Trop Rock loop, which again, I love. But I feel like if you have the same loop playing too many places, it does kind of oversaturate a little bit. And so
Yeah.
each attraction, I feel like, just like classic Epcot, needs to have its own kind of, forecourt, courtyard area music as you walk in. And I think they really were good about that up until, recently. They kind of just like, okay, everything in World Celebration and World Nature and everything's going to be the same loop. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure about that. Apparently, they brought it back at some point because it's still there now. So it's not, there's definitely a speaker boundary when you walk over there, and you can hear where it shifts over pretty clearly. But once you get up by the mosaic and everything, and even up by the little waterfall up to the land, you can hear the original loop. It's very electronic, but using like late 70s, early 80s era synthesizers. There's all kinds of classic songs. Oh, Susanna. There's all kinds of different, I can't think of any of the rest of them, but it's like all like folk songs and stuff arranged in this synthesizer thing. Oh, Give Me a Home Where the Buffaloes Roam. That one, The Skies Are Not Cloudy All Day. I can't think of the Home on the Range. That one's on there, but a beautiful arrangement of it. And I actually, believe it or not, I had this weird playlist, not weird to Disney fans, but weird to anybody else, this playlist when I would mow my lawn back in the day, where I had the Epcot entrance loop 82 on there, and then right after that was the land area music loop. And if I knew that by the time the land music loop was done, I should be done with the push mowing, and I should be on to the weed whacking by that point. So I listened to that loop a lot. I know it's such a random thing, but it kind of kept me motivated. Like, okay, it's almost over. I better hurry up. So yeah, I love that loop. And I'm so glad it's still there.
I am too. And I'm glad that it was keeping the pace for you with the lawn mowing. Yeah, I've always actually, one of the answers I gave, just sort of a throwback to the older episode, because I know I definitely said this, was the interior music loop for the land, which is not the original, but the 2005 version of the land is when they updated it with Soarin', and then sort of redid the interior spaces a bit. So it's got the Hook themes, and it's got Field of Dreams in there.
Pearl Harbor's in there.
Pearl Harbor. Yeah, it's got a lot of really beautiful sweeping symphonic tunes from a number of films. But
and it's different than the Soarin' loop too. The Soarin' loop,
and it is,
mentioned, but they're two different loops, which is, I like both of those as well.
You got so much music in the Land Pavilion. Another reason why I say, like, you can spend so much time in the Land Pavilion. You can spend hours in there, and that's my favorite pavilion to go to in general, and especially on a really hot day or when it's raining. You've got multiple attractions. You've got quick service. You've got restrooms. You've got a table service restaurant.
Yep, you're good to go.
Without going outside, you're good. So,
it is a good place when it rains. That's for sure.
I'll stick with Epcot. I do have others on here that are not. I think this is actually, I have another Epcot after this, but you're over in World Nature. I'm going to jump over to World Discovery, and I'll talk briefly about Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewinds. The Q Loop is certainly I'm not as familiar with it, because I think when you're in the queue, you're focused on the Galaxarium in the entrance, and with World Mine. And then when you move into the rest of the queue, it's more like a museum. So you're really, up till you get to the pre-show, you're hearing a lot of narration, and you're hearing Peter Quill interviewed, and you're hearing all about the wonders of Xandar. So you don't focus as much on the music as you would with other queues where there's more to look at and less to listen to. But the thing that is the most interesting music loop to me at Cosmic Rewind is actually the exit music loop, because these are, and I mean this very lovingly, the rejects of the attraction. It's all needle drop.
Yeah.
And when I learned this from Wyatt Winter, and when I had the chance to interview for Cosmic Rewind, they went through so many. I think he said they had close to 100, somewhere around 100 songs that they identified as potential sound onboard soundtracks for the attraction. and they tried basically all of them, and they ended up picking 6. But they took several, a large, I don't know exactly how many there are, but there's at least a couple of dozen, and they put them into the exit music loop. So whenever you're walking out, you get to hear what could have been, but wasn't on the attraction. So just to give fans of the attraction an idea of what's there, it's still fitting into that 70s and 80s era music that Peter Quill might have been listening to when he visited Epcot as a kid, according to the story. But you get 25 or 6 to 4 by Chicago.
Yeah.
That one is near and dear to me because that was the first rated jazz band in middle school. One of the first songs I had to play, and one of the first songs I had to improv to, which was extremely nerve-wracking. But I still ended up loving the song. Ain't No Mountain High Enough by Marvin Gaye, Barracuda by Heart, Celebration by Kool and the Gang, Rock and Roll All Night by Kiss, La Bamba by Los Lobos. Of course, they went with conga instead. And Holding Out for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler. And there are a lot more than that, but that just gives you an idea of what could have been on the attraction. So whether you're standing outside like me, because I get motion sick and I can't do it. So whether you're standing at the exit just listening, or you are walking out after riding the attraction, whatever song you hear that could have been a soundtrack for the attraction and just didn't get picked. So
that's great.
Yeah, that's a fun little nod that most people don't know about.
I feel like Holding Out for a Hero could have been a really good one out of those. That, I mean, because it really fits what's going on. Like, they need us to be the hero, right? And all the guardians to save the planet Earth, you know, from certain destruction and whatever else was going to happen with the Time Warp. So, you know, I think that's great, and I love the fact that they were. I actually didn't know that, so I learned something. I actually didn't know those were. I just thought those were like, okay, that's the same era. It's the mixtape. It's all that stuff. It's all, you know, great music that Peter Quill would have listened to, and so to me it made sense. But that's awesome. That loop is
efficient
really, really
use
fun.
of music they were picking anyway.
Yeah,
so
why not?
Just like, let's just
throw it
put
in
it here.
Let's put it in there. I love that so much. So I am going to stay in that same area, but move over just a little bit and go back in time a little bit. And I'm going to pick the Horizons external area music loop, which is not well known, actually. There is a very clear 14-minute Horizons external area music loop. If you collect park audio like I do, you probably have it. But there are several different versions of it. I was lucky enough to get one kind of through several channels that's pretty good. I don't know where it came from, but it is just so beautiful. It's like some of the Horizons, If You Can Dream It, You Can Do It, is in there, but it's also very similar to the Epcot entrance loop of 82. It's very impressionistic. It's got so many sweeping themes to it. It's all orchestral, nothing really electronic, which is fine. Epcot, I think, had a good mix of that when it opened. You needed the electronic because it was modern, but also the orchestral kind of just adds to the epic kind of drama of the place. But that loop I've listened to so many times, and it really kind of like the same way impressionistic music does. It really takes me into a dreamlike state. You know, in that listening to that, and it's only 14 minutes, but it's super good, super amazing, and I wish there was some place where they would still play it. So, but the good news is they do still play. By the way, jumping back to the Epcot entrance loop, they do still play that on major anniversaries. The 82 loop. Like on the 40th,
That's
they actually
right.
played that loop for like 2 or 3 days. And on the third day, I was like, I wonder if they just forgot to switch it back. That's okay with me.
Celebrate the whole week.
That's right.
Yeah, I have heard them do that before. I was there for, I think, the 35th, and I know they did that for that too. I'm pretty sure that was the day I was there. It was one of those anniversaries,
Right.
one of the fives.
One of the fives, yep.
Yeah, and I remember them switching it, and it was very nostalgic to hear that played.
I got
because the front
emotional
hasn't
hearing
changed too much. Yeah.
No, it
yeah.
hasn't. So, I mean, you could literally, especially with the prism coming back up there, and the fountain is not quite the same, but the prisms are very similar. And you can really kind of like put yourself in the mindset of like being back in retro Epcot for a little while.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. I love all your classic Epcot answers. I'm going to send us on a resort break.
Okay.
Before we jump back to the parks, unless you've got other resorts. I have a couple of resorts on here.
No, go for it.
But I'm going to carry us to where you and I just were, because I happen to love the music loop at Coronado Springs. And there are 2 that are now present. There's a separate one for Grandestino Tower, and then there's one for Coronado Springs. And while I love Grandestino Tower, as from, if I were to pick a place to stay, I generally lean towards Grandestino Tower for a lot of reasons. The musically, I actually gravitate to the exterior Coronado Springs music loop. And it's the best word to describe this one would be transportive. You're taking acoustic world music, especially from there's a lot of Mexican, Spanish, Portuguese inspiration, American Southwest inspiration as well. You're getting a lot, like when you listen to it, you'll hear a lot of acoustic guitar. That's certainly the dominant instrument throughout the entire music loop. You get some vocals in there, you get some bass guitar, bongos, hand drums, some songs that prominently feature violin, and it all has this atmospheric and music. It's sometimes upbeat, and it's sometimes with a little bit of rhythm to it. Other times it's dreamy and introspective and often mysterious. Like, I think mysterious and exotic is a theme that carries throughout because it does want to transport you from Central Florida to the American Southwest, to Mexico, if you're in Grandestino Tower, to Spain. And it almost, when you listen to it, yes, you're in Disney, but you feel like you could be, lounging on the coast of Mallorca or, sipping margaritas at some resort in Cozumel. It just has this very authentic sound to it. And it is needle drop. So they do pick songs from these areas of the world that carry the theme of Coronado Springs and drop it into this loop that is about an hour and a half. And that's the other thing I love about the resort music loops is they're generally longer than the park music loops because all of them are designed for how long they think someone might be there. They don't want to repeat themselves or have someone hear the same song more than once. So if you're in a queue, Soarin', it's about an hour loop because you might be in the line for about an hour.
Right.
Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is closer to like a 30-minute music loop, but Coronado Springs and some of these other resorts have like 2+, sometimes 3+ hour music loops because you could be lounging in the lobby. You could be lounging by the pool and you're going to hear this music and they don't want it to get exhausting to hear the same song even after 30 minutes, hearing the same song replay itself. So you got about, close to 2 hours or about 2 hours of this music that transport you to these different places, these different locales that play into the theme of Coronado Springs. So it's one of my favorites from the resorts. And I think they updated it when they built Grandestino Tower in 2019. They have that loop, and they updated the exterior music loop to fit the broadened theme that Grandestino brought to the resort. So that was a little resort break. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that one.
So I really do love that area music loop there at Coronado as well. I was just there this past weekend for the Retro Magic convention, and it was truly amazing because I got to walk around there after the events were over for the weekend, and I went out and did a little live stream just walking around that beautiful lagoon there. And I noticed that like there's some new speakers out there that haven't been there, I don't think, super long. Like you could see the dirt was fresh around like some of the speakers. And so it was like really just evident that they were making the music a huge integral part of the experience there. It was actually like, I liked it, but I wondered if people could hear it from their rooms. It was like actually that loud, which is like, okay, that's cool. I like it.
Wow.
But it was such a neat loop. So I love that choice. Yeah, just such a great one. So I'm going to switch up my next one. And this actually isn't on my list just because I was trying to think. I've got so much Epcot on here and it's all great stuff and we could talk about all of it. But I want to give Hollywood Studios a little bit of love.
I've got one on here for Hollywood Studios too.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see if it's the same one or not. But this one's a little bit maybe less, something you might think of less commonly. It is the entrance music for Galaxy's Edge. When you walk through the little portal there, and there's that loop there, and there's the theme there, and you're probably aware of this, but that theme was composed by John Williams himself, the man, the myth, the legend. Mm-hmm. I remember getting so psyched for Galaxy's Edge when they put out the Galaxy's Edge theme, which won John Williams another Grammy. For theme park music, that may be, I don't know, I'll have to check the records. That may be, I'd say it's one of the only times theme park music for an area music, has gotten a Grammy. I don't know.
It's certainly a rarity.
Yeah, it's a rarity. I can't say for certain it's the only time, but it's pretty rare. Now, John Williams, I'm not surprised with his resume, but what was crazy about it was I got so excited hearing it because that specific music, and you can go on YouTube or any of the platforms and search up Galaxy's Edge theme John Williams, and it'll come right up. But that one truly is transportive. It sounds like an adventure on a faraway place. It sounds like the desert. Or the kind of sandstone formations that are there on the Black Spire. It sounds like being out. You know, I always think of like R2D2 rolling over the desert hills and everything, and like this, like, and the sun is baking them, and it's like that kind of adventure theme. So they have a distilled down version of that in the entrance, and it's very ethereal sounding, and it's got kind of synthesizer, kind of this flow to it that allows the guest to be transported slowly from the Grand Avenue area, right by former Muppets area. Sad face.
Me too.
But walking through that, that was a pretty big challenge for the Imagineers to overcome, because it's like you're walking through this tunnel. I think they did it as well as they possibly could have. And then and now you're on a different planet. And so how do we do that? And one of the ways I think they did that, I think the tunnel morphing into the rock formations is a really great way to do it. I think it was thematically really, really good. But I also think having that music kind of slowly gets you ready to like, hey, this is something different. This is something new here. Even if you've never been to Disney and you did no research at all, if you walked in, you'd probably hear, if everybody was quiet enough, you'd probably hear like, oh, I hear some different music. Like, this is a different place. This is something different. So hearing that theme reminding me of John Williams. By the way, that theme is only used in two places in the land. As far as the full theme that he wrote is only used partially in one place and fully in another. And that is at the beginning of Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. It's used at the beginning. And then it's also used at Savi's workshop I believe when you finish. That theme is almost played in full there.
There's one more place on the ITS shuttle of Rise of the Resistance.
Yes, you're right. Yes, on the ITS shuttle with Captain Nine Numb.
Yep.
Excellent. So anyway, that's my pick for Hollywood Studios. What about you?
So first of all, I love that you said that one because that's one of my favorites as well. And I love that you called out the fact that it is a ethereal, slowed down version of the theme, because most people will not hear it, but because it is a much slower pace,
right,
and obviously sounds quite different, but it is the exact same harmony. And when I heard that for the first time, it took a lot of listening to it, and I'm like, wait a second,
yeah, I
recognize this melody. That was such a cool, like, geeked out moment that I loved. Mine's a simpler one, which is the modern entrance music loop. There's something about this one that always puts me in a good mood. It doesn't matter what kind of day it is. The music is just joyful. It's just like upbeat, peppy. It's perfectly fit for Hollywood Studios. And I think it's one that's best matched for the park. I mean, arguably, yes, Magic Kingdom's got a great one. Epcot, obviously, a great theme. Animal Kingdom, you've got a lot of world music in there, so it's playing on the themes of Africa and Asia and Discovery Island, etc. But Hollywood Studios just hits the mark so perfectly when you're walking in there. You know exactly what experience you're going into. And it's primarily... and it fits like the Skyliner whisking by, just like everything about it is so perfect.
Yeah.
It's like it's mostly like these big band or jazz or swing renditions of. It's a mix. There's some classic Disney. So you'll get like upbeat swing versions of Bippity Boppity Boo and Hi Ho and Let's Go Fly a Kite. But then you do get like Glenn Miller thrown in there, or like music from the actual music from the 1940s to add to the authenticity of the era. So it's a simple one, but as you're getting ready for a day at Hollywood Studios or leaving the park at the end of the day, I like to think about when I'm going in, because it does just like, it puts me in such a peppy, upbeat, like it makes me walk a little faster. It's just a great little, I think it's only 30 minutes or so, but a great little entrance loop for a park.
That's a great one. I love all the Disney themes, and then they put, like you said, they put some classic jazz in there, and just all that. And I don't know how, it's not super new, but I think it's within the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's relatively new. I don't know when I couldn't really identify when they transitioned it from the older version, but I felt like the older version, and especially as you go into Hollywood Boulevard, is much more dreamy, because Hollywood Studios, especially Hollywood Boulevard, was always meant to be this, as Michael Eisner said, this Hollywood that never was and always will be. So
Yeah.
it's what we imagine it would be. So they wanted to put you in this dreamlike state of like
Right.
the Hollywood of our dreams, like the idealized version of Hollywood.
Yeah.
But now it's more grounded in not just Hollywood, but also, you've got updated lands, you have Galaxy's Edge, you have Toy Story Land, you have other aspects of Hollywood Studios. So it's a little different of an experience going in now.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you talked about the idealized version. Like, just really quick, like one of the things I was so shocked by as a high schooler, we went to the real Hollywood for the first time, and I'd never been there before. I was like, the Chinese theater, I was like, oh, there it is. And there's a bunch of people like just selling random stuff and, poorly designed Mickey Mouse costumes there that don't look anything like Mickey Mouse. And, like that kind of stuff was out there. Right. And even some other things, they're maybe not even family friendly. Right. And so I'm like, what is this? This is the real one, So I think I love the fact that there is an idealized version of Hollywood there, at Hollywood Studios. Still, I love that idea. So,
yeah.
So we have time for one more each, or where are we at on the numbers here?
Yeah. Why don't we do? Let's do 2 honorable mentions.
Okay.
And then your last one. So we could do, if you have got 3 more, give me 2 honorable mentions, and then your final one.
Okay, great. So I will say for honorable mentions, I will give you the Canada area music loop. Is very relaxing and just such a nice, beautiful loop that I could listen to all day long. That one's great. And then another one I think is really cool and almost spa-like is the Animal Kingdom Oasis area music. So those will be my honorable mentions. Yeah, just a great, like, kind of, it gives you that. The Oasis is such a cool place anyway, but it's like the steam is rising and adventure beckons, but it's also kind of like chill, like, hey, there's all these animals here, but there's water and it's this nice place, and it's like, there's no scary predators here. It's just beautiful, landscape. So I think that works well there.
Yeah.
So that one, and then I would say my last one out of here, I'm gonna have to go classic Epcot once again here, just because it's honestly my jam. But I'm gonna have to go with the original. I'm gonna go with the original interior music for Imagination, Journey into Imagination, the original version. Gorgeous orchestrations, amazing things, and a little bit of trivia about this loop is that it actually played up until very recently, played in the restroom behind Imagination still. So there's actually some versions of that loop online that are called restroom loop, which is hilarious to me because it really is. If you go in the restroom area, loop, and it played in both restrooms. I had my wife go into the women's and confirm for me that it does play in there. I played it for her on my phone. I said, go in there and tell me if this is playing in there. And she did. She said, yeah, it is. But anyway, I think just recently they changed it to the modern Imagination loop. So, but there are so many themes. There's One Little Spark. I believe Magic Journeys is in there somewhere. Making Memories. There's also the exterior loop, the original, and it's got like several different versions of Making Memories and several other things in there. And it's got like several different, like a marimba version and like a kind of a sweeping orchestral version, all kinds of different. There's a saxophone quartet version in that one, but I had to pick the interior one because that one captivates my imagination and reminds me of being inside the glass pyramids, being able to look up and see the pyramids, just getting ready to go in the Image Works, the original Image Works. And, I got to I also met and talked to Tony Baxter, Disney legend Tony Baxter, and about Imagination, and just how badly he wants the ride to be redone, and it's into something to bring back the former glory of the attraction, which I still hope for every day. But just him discovering, he said that original area up there in the Image Works was really supposed to be inclusive for adults and kids to play together. And he said, he felt like by doing it kind of in a darker area, making it very dreamlike, almost like he felt like he hoped that he could let adults kind of step out of their adultness for a minute and actually just be kids again with their children. I thought that's
a very
cool.
Walt-like philosophy.
Yes.
I like that. And Tony definitely brings that Walt-like philosophy to it.
Yeah.
You certainly ended it on a high note on your end.
Yeah.
I am debating which ones to make my honorable mentions and which ones to end with, because I'm trying to figure out which one is the most interesting. all of these are new. So all of these are new music loops that are either updated versions of old ones or they are completely new experiences. So, you know what? I'm going to end with the most interesting one musically and not go with any personal preference. So my honorable mentions are 1, Discovery Island's music loop at Animal Kingdom. Very nature inspired, like organic instruments. You get lots of woodwinds, bongos. It's very ambient. It feels like Oasis is very spa like. Discovery Island is a little bit more upbeat, but still has a very calming feeling to it. So I love the atmospheric sounds of Discovery Island. It's just very transportive again. The other honorable mention is another, I said I have another resort one. And another, again, picking one that's new, Disney's Riviera Resort. We're going to get lots of French and Italian especially, but other Mediterranean influences as well. So you hear a combination of like jazz and classical and some folk music from the Mediterranean. You hear Disney songs sung in different languages, which is so interesting.
So
of course, Le Festin from Ratatouille is, of course, sung just in French like it is in the film. But one of my favorites is Crudelia de Mon, which is Cruella de Vil in French. There's something there from Beauty and the Beast sung in a different language. Everybody Wants to Be a Cat from Aristocats, which is so appropriate. But then you do get actual like French music and Italian music. And then you get instrumental versions. Like there's a Chim Chim Cheree rendition by Duke Ellington. Like there's just really interesting music that's played there again, like a 2.5 hour loop because it's a really good one. I just love the music for Riviera Resort. So the one I'll end with is definitely a new one, and one that I don't think fans, that it's been talked about, but I don't know if everybody is aware of it, which is Tiana's Bayou Adventures Q. And what I love about it is that the music was composed by Terence Blanchard, who himself is an accomplished musician, and played the trumpet parts for Lewis in The Princess and the Frog. And so he composed like Lewis, the actual Lewis alligator trumpet playing, the person that actually played that trumpet, composed the music for the cue music for Tiana's Bayou Adventure.
Wow.
He actually performed some of the songs in the queue. And then it's a combination. He said that, and he did some interviews about this. He did a combination of rearrangements of songs from the film. So you'll hear Down in New Orleans and When We're Human, his own rearranged versions of those. But then he has original music that he wrote for the attraction. So you'll get such songs as Basin Street Blues, Tailgate Ramble, Bourbon Street Ramble. And you can actually listen to all this. They have the full playlist on Spotify and on Apple Music. And a lot of people, I think, gravitate to that album because Special Spice is in there. He did not write that song, and it was sung by Anika Noni Rose. And it is one you hear on the ride, so you're going to want to listen to that song. But you don't really realize that when you're walking through the cue music that it has such a direct connection to the original film. It's not just a composer that they tapped at Imagineering to compose new songs, or it's not just needle drop from New Orleans and from like those like Zydeco and blues, and it's not pulling from those same genres and just trying to drop some music in there, but they actually hired Terence Blanchard to write music for the attraction, which I thought is such a cool connection. So wow. I thought blend it with that one.
It's a good one.
So I thought that it was the most interesting fact to share.
I actually like that too, that it's kind of like got that radio broadcast feel to it in a lot of places, just similar, very similar to Jungle Cruise. But like you said, original recordings of some of these classics, and even some film, you got Basin Street, which is such a classic jazz song, but that I played so many times in jazz band and even conducted so many times as a director. But then also, like you said, songs from the movie and newer things that were custom composed. So, yep, I 100% agree. That is a great music loop.
Fantastic. Well, Josh, this has been so much fun. I want to make sure people know where to go for Resort TV 1. So if anyone, I feel like most people listening probably have heard Resort TV 1, but I don't like to assume. So where can people go, and what do you post for those who are not aware?
Absolutely. So Resort TV One, our main outlet is YouTube. So just go to youtube.com/Resort TV One, or just search us in the search box. We'll come up. Actually, if you type in resort, it'll come up as a suggestion pretty quickly. So you can go over there and subscribe. We do a lot of different things. Our main bread and butter is our live streams in the park, and that basically we walk around the parks and we experience, and it's basically like, our idea behind that, we started this back in 2017, and we were the first to really do it on YouTube regularly. But, it's like we want you to feel like you're walking with us. Like you're walking with us in the parks. So we don't, we do selfie, we show our face sometimes, but mostly we let the parks be the star. And you'll hear our voices. My sister and I do the channel together, and you'll hear both of us talking. And a lot of people will say that, especially if they put headphones on, it's like I'm walking with you through the park, or people put it on while they are doing their treadmill or whatever. So that's our main thing. We also do some vlogs. And then I also have, if you're interested in the reason, then the name of the channel, Resort TV, was I also have a bunch of the older Resort TV loops. I was a dork when I was little, and brought a VCR down to Disney and recorded a lot of the the TV loops, back all the way back to like you're watching the Disney World Network and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, when we had a little bit more modern capture devices, I started recording Stacy and Chrissa, and then even the current one that doesn't necessarily have like a central host, but still is very good. So I've got a bunch of Resort TV if you're looking for that. I've also got silent strolls through the parks where I don't talk at all if you just want to feel like you're there. So over 3,000 videos on the channel you can check out. And we also have all the other socials, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. So check us out on all the things, and we'd love to see you over there.
I can certainly attest to the quality of the YouTube. Because like I said, I've been following Resort TV 1 for years, and certainly love and do feel like I'm transported to the park. So keep it up. I love what you do.
Thank you.
So anyway, Josh, great having you in the show. We'll have you back again soon. And thanks for joining me again today.
Thanks again for having me.
Welcome back to Imagination Central. Before you exit this episode, remember to follow Imagination Skyway on social media and share the show with anyone who might enjoy listening to our program. For ad-free episodes and bonus content, create a free account or sign up for a premium subscription at patreon.com/Imagination Skyway. When you're ready for your next vacation, remember that listeners of Imagination Skyway can get rewarded for booking a trip to Disney through 2026 through KMV Travel. Simply fill out the form at kmvtravel.com/Skyway and select Imagination Skyway under the How Did You Hear About Us question to be eligible for a special gift from the team. Terms and conditions apply. As you disembark, please remember to remain fully seated until the podcast comes to a complete stop. Then gather your belongings and watch your head and step as you exit. Thank you for joining me aboard Imagination Skyway, and remember, if we can dream it, we can do it.